partying, drinking, going to bars, dabbling in lots of other substances, but never in my brain then was I like, I might have an addiction problem. So really normalize things. My belief was like, I'm not cool if I don't steal or I don't smoke cigarettes or I don't try alcohol for the first time in like 6th grade. Heroin was my drug of choice and I need to stop, but like you can't tell anyone.
You ever talk to your sister at this point? Because she had already been doing it.
The first time that I was like scared of maybe I need help, she's the first person I call.
She can't help you. Sorry, Allison.
Yeah.
See you later.
I'm now getting sick without this substance. At the first time I put it in my body, I got sick, but now I'm getting sick because I need more.
Labeled a slow learner.
I always felt a little bit
always felt
different.
like there was something wrong with me.
Embarrassed. Wasn't ready to see myself.
I can't go any
Don't
lower.
sell yourself short.
Uncovering all those feelings. Everything was lifted at that moment.
This really wasn't about not drinking.
Welcome to Crosstalk Podcast, where we do our part to inspire recovery from addiction and discover a better way. Whether you're considering a life free from substance dependency or already on that path, we're here for you. Each episode, what we try to do is a deep dive into the experiences and the stories of people who have walked the walk of recovery alongside experts in the field to enhance our understanding of addiction recovery. Our mission is simple. Our mission is to help people navigate the challenges and celebrate the victories of your personal journey to a better life. So buckle up and let's hit the road as we embark on this transformative journey together. This is Crosstalk Podcast.
So today we have asked Miss Alison Van Horn to be on our podcast. Welcome to Crosstalk.
Thank you. I am excited to be here.
Introduce yourself. Tell us
Yes.
who you are, how you grew up.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of get into the nitty gritty of what happened. How to
Okay.
get dark.
Yes.
How to get light again.
Okay. So the whole thing.
The whole thing. And
Okay.
then what early recovery looks like and what recovery looks like now. And for you, who is a professional in the
Yeah.
field, what you do to help others in the community. And I know
Uh-huh.
that you especially do a lot. So
you.
I'm really excited.
Thank you. Okay. So where I'm like trying to think where to start. So I'm going to start.
Where are you from?
I'm going to start from where I'm from and like back in the day. So I grew up in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia in a town called Paoli, which if people are not from that area, you might not know where Paoli is, but a nice area outside of Philadelphia. I grew up in a very Catholic Italian family. So my mom's side are the Italians. My dad's a mixture of everything, but where I note the Italian Catholic family is because when I was little, because my mom's parents were Italian Catholics, we had to go to church, had to go to Catholic middle school. You had to believe in God. So it wasn't even really something that my parents were big believers in. It was just like, you're expected to do this because you grew up in an Italian Catholic family. So I went to Catholic middle school from kindergarten to 8th grade. I want to say like maybe in 1st grade, I literally have memories of going to like a CVS. I'm going to age myself. When we were little in CVS, they had the open shelves of loose candies. I don't know if they have that anymore, but I remember walking down the aisle and stealing like the little loose caramel candies. And my mom saw me do it the one time and she was like, Allison, I know that you took a candy. And I was like, no, I didn't. Right. So just like from 1st grade, remembering stealing and lying about it. And I think she made me go up to the cashier to empty my pocket to be like, I took this, but I still was denying it. So even though it was like caught red-handed with candy in my pocket, I was like, no. That just stuck out in my memory. So I want to share that part. In Catholic middle school, I think maybe in 5th grade or 6th grade, one of my best friends was friends with kids at the public school. And the cool thing, right, as fifth graders was to smoke cigarettes. So no one in my family smoked. My mom specifically hated cigarettes. And me and my friend would go over to one of the public middle school girls' houses and steal cigarettes from her parents. And when I would come home, my mom would be like, "You smell like cigarettes." And I'm like, "No, I don't." Right? Like I would always deny things. And my oldest sister one time walked into my room when me and my friend Carrie were smoking cigarettes and blowing it out of the window. And we weren't even inhaling. Like we were just smoking, but we're too little to know that you had to inhale. And my friend's sister taught us how to inhale. So this was like a fifth grader smoking cigarettes, did it because I thought it was cool, but would lie about it to my mom.
What do you think the lying about it was about? Were you trying to get over, or you were afraid what you would do if you said yes?
Yeah, I think probably more fear, right? Of like, if I admit to this and I knew it was bad or wrong, I will get in trouble or I will be judged. My mom is the sweetest lady. So she wasn't you feared that she was going to scream at you or punish you, right? My mom, if anything, was like too sweet and kind of would take your word at face value and look the other way. But I think more just like fear of judgment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or being perceived as like a bad kid. So I would lie.
Which do you think is worse? The lying about it, knowing you're lying, or being on the outside being told that, you did something terrible?
Probably the latter. So being perceived on the outside like you did something terrible.
Yeah.
Like I was okay with lying. It was just like, how would somebody else look at me? Yeah. So just like denied, even though it was like, nope, I did this, but I'm going to look at you in the face and lie to you and tell you that I didn't.
Interesting how as you get older and you magnify that a little bit about trying to make other people feel how wonderful and perfect we are.
Yeah.
It's a little different level of it, but it goes into all other different social things.
Yes. So socially wanted my parents to think I was like this good child. Socially with my friends wanted it to seem like I was cool. So my belief was like, I'm not cool if I don't steal or I don't smoke cigarettes or I don't try alcohol for the first time in like sixth grade. I remember the first time I got drunk. I think I was in sixth grade, went to my friend's house. I think it was vodka, like orange flavored, nasty vodka from her parents. And we were taking shots as a sixth grader. Right. And when I say that now, I'm like, that's so young. But at that time, probably thinking I was like this really mature teenager. I don't even know how old you are in sixth grade, but you're young.
You're young.
You're very
young.
young.
Like
11 or 12.
11 or 12, yeah.
That's young.
It is.
But back then thinking like I'm this like cool old teenager. I was not. But I remember I went home and I'm the youngest girl of two older sisters. We're all 2 years apart. And I remember my sisters, when I got home, were like, "What's wrong with you?" Because they knew that something was wrong. They didn't do any of these things back then, right? They weren't smoking cigarettes. They weren't drinking. And I was like, "I'm drunk and don't tell mom and dad." And I remember they came in my room and I was in my bed and I vomited on myself in front of my sisters. And I was like, "Don't tell." So even from that young age, telling my sisters, like, "You have to hold my secret for me." And they did.
Oh, they did? That's what I wanted to know.
They did. And I was like, I was the young one, but was like doing the things that maybe you would think your older sisters were doing. Like I was the bad little sister that if anything was like trying to corrupt them of like, "This is cool, do this."
And out of curiosity, do either of your sisters have any addiction issues?
So yes, that I am actually proud of them to say they're both in recovery. So
how cool.
I was the youngest one first one to go out into an addiction and first one to get sober. And then my sisters followed in those footsteps. So my oldest sister, I think she's 45 or 47, I should know. She has 8 years sober. And then my sister, closest in age to me, has 10 years sober.
Wow.
And I will have 11 years this upcoming year. And I don't say that to be like, I have 11 years sober, right? But in the sense of like, that's a long time for somebody who back then was like, I don't know if I can get, a few days clean from substances. So
It's interesting how you were the first one to do things that weren't so terrific.
yeah.
They kind of followed.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the first one to do things that were terrific, and they kind of followed.
And they kind of followed.
Unusual for
Yeah.
the younger one
I know.
to be the leader of the pack.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
I know.
So, I think that 11 years is quite an accomplishment, and it's pretty incredible.
Thank you.
And, you were integral in my sobriety. So I want to hear more about
Yeah.
your road to that.
My road to recovery. So
I know we're in middle school.
Yes.
We'll
we'll fast forward.
To get worse.
It can- yeah.
Continue to kind of get worse every year.
So yes and no. Like when I eventually went to high school, right? All of the teenagers were drinking at parties, smoking weed. So experimenting more, but normalizing it to this is just what you do when you're in high school. Same thing in college, partying, drinking, going to bars, dabbling in lots of other substances, but never in my brain then was I might have an addiction problem. So really normalize things. The one part that I did leave out, which is worth noting, is my oldest sister, when I was in middle school, and maybe it was when she was in 8th or 9th grade, she started dating someone and got addicted to heroin. So this was back when in high school, people were not using heroin. That was just not a thing back then. So where I share that is I grew up seeing my older sister almost die from a heroin addiction, but I was so young that I didn't understand it. So where that's worth noting is because as I got older in high school and college, was doing, experimentation with different substances, I wasn't maybe I'll turn out like my sister. To me, what she was doing was something that I would never become, even though I understood and saw how bad addiction was for her.
So were you, because for example, in my family, I didn't do drugs till I was 26.
Yeah.
I did pills earlier. I did, Adderall and uppers in college because I'm ADD and that's what you do, right? But I would look at my siblings or friends or whatever and say I would never smoke pot.
Yes.
They're a pothead. I'm not a pothead.
Yeah.
So was it kind of like that? I'll never do heroin?
Yes, it was, and loved my sister, right? But looked at that type of drug as if you're doing something like that, then you must really be an addict, right? So thinking that any other substance that wasn't heroin or crack, right? That was okay as long as you weren't doing really bad drugs.
And what you were doing through high school, college, did it cause any other problems, either grades or relationships or any other impacts?
No.
It was
And
just everything was smooth sailing.
everything was smooth sailing. And sometimes when people ask me that, I'm was that my denial of no, everything was fine, even though it wasn't? Things were really okay. I was a straight A student in college. I was a nerd. I am a nerd. I wasn't a nerd. I am still a nerd, but did very well in school. Kept close relationships with friends, my family, nothing. It wasn't so much denial of I'm doing this, but things are fine. I was managing. Nothing in college brought me to my knees in terms of relationships or jobs or finances. I was okay.
So would you characterize your use of drugs and alcohol during this time as being normal or crossing the line?
Normal in comparison to, I'm a big comparer, right? So if I think about my friends back then, it was normal in relationship to what everybody around me was doing. If I look at it from a further outside perspective, it probably wasn't so normal, right? It isn't normal for the average adult to stay up all night drunk or snorting lines of cocaine or whatever. It
was average for who you were hanging with.
It was average for who I was hanging out with. So I think that made it easier for me to be this is just what people do. And I hadn't experienced any bad consequences at that point in my life. It wasn't until probably like a year or so after I graduated with my first master's degree. I started dating
I just want
somebody.
to note that you
Yeah.
just said first master's degree. So
Yes.
you were I don't want to say overachiever, but like
Yeah.
you were doing pretty well.
I was
mean,
doing pretty well.
I didn't get a
Yeah.
master's degree.
Yeah.
You know?
I was doing pretty well. I went to undergrad and then immediately went right into graduate school the next year. So, master's degree in criminology, wanted to work in law. Like back then I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. So out of graduate school, I was working at a law firm for 2 male attorneys. And I was like this naive young girl who was in for a big surprise working at a law firm for 2 powerful male attorneys, because I was kind of the like, thought I was doing paralegal work, which I was doing, but I was just really doing whatever they wanted me to do. And it was a very stressful job. But goal with that was like to go down the track of eventually going to law school, wanted to work in law. When I was working there, I actually started hanging out with this guy who went to high school with me. He was a grade above me. In high school, didn't really talk to him. We weren't really friends, but started hanging out with the same group of people and met him about a year after graduate school, because I was back living in the hometown that I grew up in.
Okay.
Working, trying to save money, figure out my life.
Was that where that law firm was?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
In
In your own
Paoli.
apartment.
Yes, I was living in my own apartment at this time.
Alone?
Alone.
Ooh.
When we started dating, I didn't move in with him, but very quickly was like staying at his house all the time. He had another roommate. It took me maybe 3 months, 4 months into our relationship. I knew that he did drugs, right? I knew that he drank, smoked weed, he did pills. I didn't do pills, and I don't say that in the sense of like I wasn't doing pills, but to paint the picture of like heroin was my drug of choice. I wasn't somebody that was addicted to pills and then was like, okay, I'm going to try heroin. I knew that he did things like that, but it was like 3 or 4 months into our relationship that I started noticing things. Like we would be hanging out in mid-conversation and he would start nodding out. And I'm like, maybe he is tired or he did too many pills, right? Kind of naive, but also like, this isn't normal. Something's wrong with him. And a few months into our relationship, I remember I found bags of heroin. And I was like, he's doing heroin. Like I knew what it was because I saw my sister do that. I remember finding little baggies of heroin when I was growing up that were hers.
And
So
was this intravenous or you don't know yet?
At that time, I didn't know.
Okay.
I just knew, okay, he's definitely doing heroin. And I remember when I found the bags, I didn't immediately confront him to be like, what is this? Because I think in my mind, I was like, maybe he has this under control. I didn't know how to approach him about it. And I think I also was like scared of like, oh shit, is the person that I'm in love with, right? I was in love with this guy, or I convinced myself that I was. Is he really doing this? Because I knew that if that was true, and because of how much I convinced myself I was in love with him, that would not be good for me. So I eventually said something to him, and he did what all good, I'm going to say this about myself, right? Because I'm an addict, I'm in recovery, what all good addicts do, which is like, it's not that big of a deal. I have this under control. He absolutely did not.
So he didn't deny it.
He didn't deny it. He wasn't like, this isn't mine, right? He said, this is something I do once in a while. It's under control. You have nothing to worry about. He got worse with it. And the sick person that I was at that point in my life, like stayed with him. I think I was like, maybe I can get this guy clean, even though I was doing all of these other substances, but I wasn't doing heroin. So like, I wasn't the one that had a drug problem.
Of course.
That's what I was telling myself. So I remember being like, maybe you should go to treatment. His brother was close. I was close friends with. We were like, maybe we need to get him to go to treatment. And then my sick brain months into the relationship was like, maybe if I try this, I will like understand what it's like.
Oh.
You know what it reminds me of?
Yeah.
Is that his heroin was like the caramel candies in CVS, and you were kind of your mother
Yes.
saying, yeah, well,
Yeah.
If it says it's not a problem,
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insanity. Like when I think like, okay, if I try this with him, maybe like it'll bring me closer to him or I'll understand, or like that's crazy. I'm just
when
going
you love someone like
yeah.
your family or you'll protect someone, right?
Yeah.
Because like you want to defend them.
Still insanity.
It was insanity. And I remember when I first tried it, I didn't tell him. I found a bag in his room and I snorted it when he wasn't there. So it wasn't even the like, I want to do this with you. Let's do this together. Like when I'm going to just say that is some like distorted thinking that I had of like, I'm going to try this, not tell him about it. And when I eventually did, he was very upset with me being like, how could you do that? You don't understand what you're getting yourself into. But this was coming from a man who was also addicted to heroin. So there was a part of him of like maybe wanting to protect me from getting into the depths of something that he was horribly addicted to. But when I reflect back on that now, I'm like, my thinking was just it was not normal. So again, I started doing that, never into pills, not addicted to opiates of any sort of the kind.
You went straight for it.
I just went straight for it. And I convinced myself I will not get addicted to heroin. Like I literally was like, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to do this once in a while and I will be fine. And that is obviously not how something like that works. So
especially not heroin.
No.
This sounds like a big oopsie daisy.
Yeah. But I was like, it's fine. Like I can control this. It was not good. And so I feel like, as we all know, it progresses. And for me, it progressed very quickly, right? It went from me snorting it, like getting sick the first times I did it because my body rejected it because that's poison, right, to your body. Yeah. So even though I did it and it instantly made me sick, I was like, I'm going to keep doing it because if I keep doing it, maybe then I won't get sick and my body will. It's just, I highlight that because my thinking was insane.
And, did he realize that you were taking his drugs? I mean, like, as someone who used to do drugs, like, you don't take mine.
You don't, yes.
I would protect my stuff,
For sure. But when we started doing it together, and again, at this time in my life, I was working. When I say I had a lot of money, I wasn't like rich, but like I had money. Well. Right. So if anything, it might have been good to him of like, well, Allie, he wasn't working. I don't even know how he maybe got money for the drugs that he was buying at the time, now that I think about it. But I was working. So then it was like, I could also buy it for us. Right. But that continued on for a while. And I remember the first time I ever got sick, I was withdrawing. And I didn't understand that was what was happening to me. We were getting ready to go out to dinner. And I think maybe we were supposed to go out to dinner with my mom. And I started to get sick. And he was like, you're going through withdrawals. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, because my brain didn't understand what that was because I had never been so addicted to a substance that I knew what withdrawing was. But I was getting sick. And he was like, well, we need to get more so that you feel better.
Naturally.
So that's when I was like, maybe I have a problem, but still in denial, right? Canceled dinner, didn't go to meet with my mom. I think him and I were both supposed to go. But I think that scared me to be like, wait a minute, I'm now getting sick without this substance. That the first time I put it in my body, I got sick, but now I'm getting sick because I need more of it. Yeah. So that continued on for a long time. You
ever talk to your sister at this point? Because she had already been doing it, was doing it, and you were having this experience. No,
but she, maybe after, I want to say like a year or two, when I was just continuing to get worse into it, the first time that I was like scared of maybe I need help, she's the first person I called. She had already gotten clean. She didn't stay clean. It was like one of the times that she was clean. But I remember I called her and I was like, I need to tell you something. She was not anticipating that phone call from her little sister, right? She had no idea. But I remember telling her, I've been using heroin for, I don't know if it was like a year or two, and I need to stop, but like, you can't tell anyone. Like, don't tell mom, don't tell dad, but I don't know what to do. And I think I literally remember her being like, Allison, I love you, but I can't help you. Because she knew enough to know like that was bigger than her. She could not help me.
But so is this is the sister that had the heroin problem?
Yeah.
But you said you got sober first.
I was the one that once I went to Karen, which we'll get into further down the line, I was the first one that like maintained my sobriety and never went back out.
So at this time when you contacted her, was she still doing heroin?
She wasn't. So she was clean from that. I think maybe she was like drinking, doing other things.
Okay. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. But
She can't help you. Sorry, Allison.
Yeah.
See you later.
And I think she was like, you need to tell mom and dad, like you need to call them. I don't know what I expected my sister would have been able to do for me, right? When I called and said like, I want help. I don't know what it was that I thought she could do of just like.
It actually sounds pretty reasonable to call her. She did go through that. I would have thought she might have said, well, I went here.
Yeah.
It would have been reasonable for her to say, look, if you want help, this is where you go.
Right.
But she obviously was doing other things, so she couldn't manage to be a big sister, or she was having enough trouble with herself to, she couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But she protected your secret still.
She didn't tell anybody. Eventually, I don't remember. That time in my life is such a blur to me that I don't remember at what point, like my family eventually knew that I was
25 years old at this point.
So I got sober when I was 29. So I was probably around that age. And at some point the rest of my family, and they didn't know it was heroin, right? But they knew that something was not right. Like I was not maintaining communication with my parents. They weren't seeing me. I was not going to like family functions or events. And I remember my mom would always be like, something's like not okay, but I don't think that they understood like the depths of what was happening. So
how are you going to work? I mean, you're working at a law firm.
I eventually stopped going to work. I eventually stopped showing up to work. At some point in our relationship, I remember my boyfriend at the time taught me how you could take out like cash advances on credit cards. Worst thing that you could learn how to do, because I had such good credit and I had so many credit cards that we were doing that all the time to get money. It was not good. So this went on for like a couple years, right? Where I further alienated myself from all of my friends, my family, was getting myself into horrible amounts of debt, taking out these cash advances. Started going with him to Philadelphia to like pick up heroin, meet the drug dealers, right? So this is like my first exposure to Kensington, Philadelphia, was like going with him to pick things up. And I remember being there. It's an area where like, unless you live there, someone like me, and I'm just going to say this, right? I am a white woman. I absolutely was not from an area like that. So when I went there, like I stuck out like a sore thumb. Like people just knew that you did not belong in that area. If you were somebody like me down there, you were down there buying drugs. Like there was no other reason to be in these neighborhoods. So I remember when we first started going down there, I was like thrilled by this lifestyle, because it was not an area that I should have been in, and I like didn't fit in, but I was like, this is awesome. Like I thought it was like Disneyland, just like this inner city place that we could go and get whatever we wanted. So
there was a thrill.
There was a big thrill.
Sounds like cigarettes in 6th grade.
Exactly.
I was just thinking that.
Of like, you shouldn't be doing this, but this is exciting. Like I wasn't scared. I was like, this is awesome. Like, and I almost like, why haven't I been down here before? Right. Because he used to always go and get what we needed. I could talk about that relationship or that time in my life forever, but it eventually got to a point where he got arrested so many different times. He was in and out of jail for possession. But I still needed to get heroin. So like I slowly started making connections with the drug dealers in Kensington, Philadelphia. I think at one point when he was in jail, I moved in with his mom, who was also like a raging alcoholic, because I couldn't go home, right? Couldn't go home.
Yeah.
I didn't have my apartment anymore. I needed somewhere to go, and I was staying with his mom, who kind of looked the other way, and I did whatever I wanted while her son was in jail. But eventually this went on for enough years that I slowly continued to go down to Philadelphia and met enough people down there that literally my great thinking back then was like, maybe I'll just move to the city. I had no place of my own down there. I was not working, and I found somebody that I met down there that let me move in with them. And I'm like, I'm just going to move in with this person. It was a guy, not like romantically involved,
Right.
but like I can just move in with this person because I can be closer to my drugs.